Give me my mother and I'll heal you." The words hung in the air of the 42nd floor conference room like an impossible promise. Mitchell Harrington, billionaire CEO worth $8.3 billion, stared at the 8-year-old boy standing before him. Clothes worn thin, shoes with holes, but eyes that seemed to see straight through every wall Mitchell had spent decades building. "You're dying, Mr. Harrington," the child said softly. "I can see it in the way your left hand shakes, the way you favor your right leg. All your money can't save you, but I can." Mitchell's jaw clenched. This boy, this impossible, desperate child, had just exposed the secret Mitchell had hidden from the world. The progressive neurological disease eating away at him from the inside. The death sentence no amount of wealth could overturn. "What do you want?" Mitchell's voice was ice. "Save my mama. She's dying at Mercy Hospital. They say we can't afford the treatment." James Porter took a step closer, his small hand reaching out. "Save her life, and I promise you, Mr. Harrington, you'll heal too." What happened next would shatter everything Mitchell believed about power, science, and the human heart. Welcome to Vicky Tale, where stories don't just entertain, they transform. To everyone watching, thank you. Thank you for choosing to spend your precious time with us. And to our amazing subscribers, you are the heartbeat of this channel. We appreciate you more than you know. Let us know where you're watching from in the comment section. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the story you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about healing, sacrifice, and what it truly means to be whole. The morning started like every other morning in Mitchell Harrington's precisely controlled world. 5 a.m. Wake up. Ignore the tremor in his left hand. 5:30 a.m. Shower. Pretend not to notice the weakness spreading to his right side. 6 a.m. Dress in a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. 6:45 a.m. Arrive at Harrington Pharmaceuticals, the empire he'd built from nothing but rage and determination. By 9 a.m. he was seated at the head of his conference table on the 42nd floor, Manhattan sprawling beneath him like a kingdom he'd conquered but couldn't save him. The quarterly report spread before him showed profit margins that would make investors salivate. None of it mattered. 3 years ago, Dr. Raymond Chen had delivered the diagnosis with clinical precision. Progressive neurological disease. No cure. 3 to 7 years, maybe less. Mitchell would slowly lose control of his body. First his hands, then his legs, then his ability to speak, to swallow, to breathe. All while his mind remained perfectly intact, trapped in a failing prison of flesh. Mitchell had responded the only way he knew how. He'd thrown money at the problem, millions into research, the best specialists in the world. Experimental treatments from Switzerland, Japan, Germany. Nothing worked, nothing even slowed it down. The tremor in his left hand had started 6 months ago. A slight shake he could hide by keeping his hand in his pocket, by gripping things tighter. But it was getting worse. Soon everyone would see. Soon the board would start circling like sharks, sensing weakness, ready to tear him apart the way his father always said they would. Weak, his father's voice echoed in his memory. "You'll never be strong enough, Mitchell, never tough enough. The world will eat you alive." So Mitchell had made himself into something the world couldn't eat. Cold, calculating, untouchable. A man who trusted nothing but numbers and feared nothing but vulnerability. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called, his voice sharp. Gloria Martinez, his assistant for the past 5 years, peeked her head inside. She was one of the few people Mitchell almost respected. Efficient, discreet, unflappable. Except today, she looked flustered. "Mr. Harrington, I apologize for the interruption, but security just called. There's a situation in the lobby." Mitchell didn't look up from his reports. "Handle it. That's what I pay you for." "Sir, they've tried. It's a child. He got past the front desk somehow, and he's refusing to leave. Security has attempted to remove him twice, but he keeps coming back. Call his parents. Have them retrieve their child. I don't have time for whatever publicity stunt this is." "That's the thing, sir." Gloria stepped fully into the room, her expression troubled. "He says his mother is dying, and he says he has something you need." Mitchell's pen stopped moving. Slowly, he raised his eyes to meet Gloria's. "What did you say?" "He's been sitting in the lobby for 3 hours, sir. He won't leave. He keeps telling security to give you a message. Tell Mr. Harrington I can heal him, but he has to give me my mother." The conference room suddenly felt too small, too hot. Mitchell's left hand began to shake, and he pressed it flat against the table. "I don't need anything from a child," he said, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. "Remove him from the building." "Sir, remove him." Gloria nodded and turned to leave, but as she reached the door, Mitchell heard himself say, "Wait." She turned back, hope flickering in her eyes. Mitchell closed his eyes. He saw himself at 8 years old, small and desperate, watching his mother die in a hospital bed they couldn't afford, watching her slip away while doctors shook their heads and his father stood silent, cold, unmoved. He remembered the helplessness, the rage, the moment he'd sworn he'd never be powerless again. And here was a child, desperate just like he'd been, asking for the one thing Mitchell could actually give: money. "Bring him up," Mitchell said quietly. Gloria's face broke into a smile. "Yes, sir. Right away." The 10 minutes Mitchell waited felt like hours. He stood and walked to the windows, staring out at the city below. Millions of people down there, living their small lives, completely unaware that Mitchell Harrington was dying. That all his power, all his wealth, all his control meant nothing against the biology betraying him cell by cell. The door opened. Mitchell turned, and there he was. James Porter couldn't have been more than 8 years old. He was small for his age, all sharp angles and big eyes. His clothes were clean, but worn so thin, Mitchell could see the shape of his shoulders through his t-shirt. His jeans had been patched at the knees, carefully, lovingly, by hands that knew how to make things last. His sneakers had holes near the toes, but his eyes, God, his eyes were ancient, deep brown and filled with a knowing that seemed impossible for someone so young. They met Mitchell's without fear, without hesitation, without the deference everyone else showed him. "Mr. Harrington," the boy said, his voice steady despite the trembling in his hands. "My name is James Porter. Thank you for seeing me." Mitchell studied him the way he'd study a business adversary. "You're the child who's been harassing my security staff." "I wasn't harassing them, sir. I was just persistent. My mama taught me that when something matters, you don't give up easy." "Your mother?" Mitchell walked back to his chair and sat down, creating a physical barrier between them. "Gloria said she's sick. She's dying." James's voice cracked on the word, but he didn't cry. "Pulmonary fibrosis. Her lungs are scarring up, and she can barely breathe anymore. The doctors at Mercy Hospital say she needs a lung transplant, but we're not on any list because we don't have insurance. We can't afford the medications that might slow it down. Every day she gets a little worse. And He stopped, swallowing hard. When he spoke again, his voice was stronger. "I know you can afford it, Mr. Harrington. I researched you at the library. You own Harrington Pharmaceuticals. You're worth billions. You could save my mama with money you'd never even miss." Mitchell leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "And why would I do that? I don't know you or your mother. What makes you think I'd simply hand over potentially millions of dollars to a stranger?" "Because I can heal you," James said simply. The words landed like a physical blow. "Excuse me." James walked closer to the table, his small frame dwarfed by the expensive furniture. "I know you're sick, Mr. Harrington. Everyone knows. The newspapers speculate about it. Your competitors whisper about it. They say you're dying and that all your money can't save you." Mitchell's jaw tightened. The newspapers speculate about many things. Most of them are wrong. But this one isn't wrong, is it? James's voice was gentle, not accusing. "I can see it. The way you hold your left hand when you think no one's looking. How it shakes. The way you favored your right leg when you walked to the window just now. The medication bottles I glimpsed in your briefcase when Gloria opened the door." Mitchell's blood ran cold. He'd been so careful, so meticulous about hiding his symptoms. Yet this child had seen through everything in seconds. "What are you?" Mitchell asked quietly. "I'm just a boy who loves his mama," James replied. "But my grandma, before she passed last year, she taught me things. She had a gift, a healing touch. She could lay hands on people and help them feel better. Not all the time, not for everyone, but enough that people would come from all over our neighborhood when they were hurting. That's not medicine, that's superstition. Maybe, James shrugged, but my grandma taught me before she died, taught me how to see what's really wrong with people. And she told me I had the gift too, maybe even stronger than hers. She said the body knows how to heal itself if you can just wake it up, show it the way. Mitchell laughed, but it was a bitter sound. You want me to believe in faith healing? I'm a pharmaceutical executive, child. I deal in science, in clinical trials, in peer-reviewed research, not in mystical nonsense. Then why are your hands shaking right now? James asked softly. Mitchell looked down. Both his hands were trembling against the table, not from his disease, but from emotion he'd suppressed for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like. Fear, hope, the terrible, dangerous vulnerability of wanting something he couldn't buy or control. James, he said, forcing his voice to remain steady, even if I believed you, which I don't, what you're proposing is insane. You want me to spend potentially millions of dollars on your mother's treatment in exchange for… what? You touching me? Praying over me? In exchange for hope, James said. That's what I'm offering you, Mr. Harrington. Real hope, not the kind you can buy with research grants and experimental treatments. The kind that comes from faith, from believing that maybe, just maybe, the universe puts people together for a reason. Mitchell stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. The movement sent a tremor through his left leg, and he gripped the table to steady himself. The universe is indifferent, James. There's no grand plan. There's only biology and chemistry and the cold, hard facts of physics. Faith is what desperate people cling to when reality becomes unbearable. Is that what you are, Mr. Harrington? James asked, his eyes never leaving Mitchell's face. Desperate? The question hung in the air between them. Yes, Mitchell wanted to scream. Yes, I'm desperate. I'm dying and terrified, and so goddamn alone I can't remember the last time someone touched me with genuine affection. I'm desperate enough that I'm standing here listening to an 8-year-old boy talk about faith healing instead of throwing him out like I should. But he couldn't say any of that. Couldn't show that kind of weakness. What's wrong with your mother? Mitchell asked instead, turning toward the windows. Specifically, pulmonary fibrosis, James repeated. Idiopathic. They don't know what caused it. Started about 2 years ago. First, she just got tired easy. Then she started coughing all the time. Then she couldn't work anymore. She was a third-grade teacher. And she loved those kids, but she couldn't breathe well enough to get through a full day. Now, his voice broke, and this time a tear did slip down his cheek. Now she can barely get out of bed. She's on oxygen all the time. The doctors say without a transplant, she's got maybe 3 months, maybe less. Mitchell knew pulmonary fibrosis. His company had invested millions in research for treatments. He knew the statistics, the survival rates, the brutal reality of lungs that slowly turned to scar tissue. Without intervention, James's mother was living on borrowed time. With proper treatment and a transplant, she could live for years, maybe decades. How did you find me? Mitchell asked, still facing the window. I researched, James said, and there was pride in his voice. I went to the public library every day for 2 weeks. I looked up the richest people in New York who owned medical companies. You were at the top of the list. And then I started reading about you in the newspapers. That's when I saw the articles speculating about your health, about you being sick. And I just knew it was meant to be. Like we were supposed to help each other. Meant to be, Mitchell repeated, bitter laughter in his voice. There's no such thing as destiny, James. There's only random chance and the choices we make. Then why are your hands still shaking? James asked gently. If you really don't believe, if you really think I'm just a desperate kid trying to con you, why haven't you called security? Why are you still listening to me? Mitchell closed his eyes. The boy was right. He should have ended this conversation 5 minutes ago. Should have had James escorted out and returned to whatever social services could find his family. But he was still here, still listening, because beneath all his cynicism, beneath the armor he'd built around himself after his diagnosis, There was still a spark of hope he couldn't quite extinguish. The same hope that made him fund research grants, even when doctors said there was no cure. The same hope that made him wake up each morning and pretend he had a future. "If I agree to help your mother," Mitchell said slowly, turning back to face James, "what exactly do you propose to do for me?" James walked around the conference table until he stood directly in front of Mitchell. Up close, he looked even younger. His face still held the softness of childhood, the vulnerability of someone who hadn't yet learned to hide his heart from the world. But those eyes, those ancient, knowing eyes. "Give me your hand," James said. "No." "Why not?" "Because I don't believe in what you're selling." "Then you've got nothing to lose." James held out his small hand, palm up. "Just let me try. If nothing happens, you'll know I'm lying and you can kick me out. But if something does happen..." He left the sentence unfinished, hanging between them like a promise. Mitchell stared at that outstretched hand. It was small, calloused from work no child should have to do. The nails were bitten short. There was a scar across the palm, old, well-healed. It was just a hand. Just a child's hand. What harm could it do? Slowly, Mitchell extended his left hand, the one that tremored most frequently, the one that kept him awake at night with phantom pains and the promise of worse to come. James took it in both his small palms. His hands were warm, warmer than they should be. For a long moment, nothing happened. Mitchell almost pulled away, almost laughed at his own foolishness for entertaining this charade. But then, heat. It started in his fingertips, a warmth that had nothing to do with physical temperature. It spread up his palm, into his wrist, flooding up his arm like electricity, but softer, gentler, like his nerves were waking up from a long sleep. The constant ache in his hand, the ache he'd grown so accustomed to, he barely noticed it anymore, suddenly eased. "What are you doing?" Mitchell whispered, his voice barely audible. James's eyes were closed, his face peaceful. "I'm not doing anything, Mr. Harrington. Your body is. I'm just helping it remember." "Remember what?" "How to heal." James opened his eyes, and Mitchell was startled to see tears there. "Your body wants to be well, Mr. Harrington. It's just forgotten how. All those years of anger and bitterness, all that time you spent building walls around your heart, it made your body forget too. Made it sick. That's not how neurological disease works. Maybe not in your medical journals." James's voice was soft, non-judgmental. "But in the real world, the world where bodies and hearts and spirits are all connected, that's exactly how it works. You've been so angry for so long, your body started eating itself from the inside." Mitchell wanted to argue, wanted to cite studies and statistics and everything he knew about pathology. But he couldn't deny what he was feeling, the warmth, the easing of pain. The strange sense that something fundamental was shifting inside him. James released his hand and stepped back. Mitchell flexed his fingers, staring at them in disbelief. The tremor was still there. He could feel it, hovering just beneath the surface. But it was fainter. The weakness had diminished. He could make a fist without the shooting pains that usually accompanied the movement. It shouldn't be possible. It wasn't possible. Yet it had happened. "This is..." Mitchell struggled to find words. "This is just the placebo effect, power of suggestion. There's no real..." "You felt it," James interrupted gently. "I know you did. And I know you're scared to believe it, because if you believe it might be real, then you have to believe other things might be real too. Like hope, like healing. Like maybe you don't have to die alone and angry after all." The words hit Mitchell like a physical blow. He sank back into his chair, his carefully constructed defenses crumbling. "What do you want from me, James?" he asked, and his voice was raw, stripped of its usual authority. "Really? What's the catch?" "No catch." James's smile was gentle. "Just save my mama. Give her the treatment she needs, the transplant, everything. And in exchange, I'll work with you. I'll do these sessions as often as you want. I'll let your doctors study what I do. I'll try to help you heal." "Try." Mitchell latched onto the word. "You can't guarantee it will work." "No," James admitted, "I can't. My grandma always said the healing has to come from inside the person. I can only show you the door, Mr. Harrington. You have to be the one to walk through it." Mitchell thought about his options. He could refuse. Send James away, pretend this conversation never happened. Go back to his carefully controlled existence, slowly dying while surrounded by wealth that meant nothing. Or he could take a chance, could reach out for this impossible, improbable hope a desperate child was offering. One condition, Mitchell said finally, we do this simultaneously. Your mother's treatment starts today. I'll make the calls right now. But you start sessions with my medical team tomorrow. We monitor everything, track every metric, figure out if this is real or just wishful thinking. James shook his head. That's not how it works, Mr. Harrington. You have to help my mama first, all the way. Complete her treatment, get her the transplant, make sure she's stable and healing. Then I'll work with you. That could take months. I know. And I'm supposed to just trust you, trust that you'll hold up your end once your mother is safe. Yes, James said simply, you're supposed to have faith. That's the whole point. You can't receive healing if your heart is closed. You have to give without knowing for sure you'll get anything back. You have to believe. That's not how business works. This isn't business, Mr. Harrington. James's eyes were steady on his. This is about two people who are dying and maybe finding a way to live. This is about opening your heart to the possibility that there are more important things than contracts and guarantees and protecting yourself from ever being hurt. Mitchell stared at this impossible child who spoke like a philosopher and offered miracles with calloused hands. Every instinct screamed at him to refuse, to protect himself, to stay safe behind his walls. But he remembered his mother's face as she died, remembered the helplessness, the rage at a system that let good people suffer because they couldn't afford to be saved. And he thought about James's mother, a woman he'd never met, a stranger whose only crime was being poor in a world where healthcare was a commodity. He thought about the warmth in his hand, the impossible, inexplicable easing of pain. He thought about dying alone in his penthouse, surrounded by wealth and crushed by the weight of a lifetime spent trusting nothing and no one. Fine, Mitchell heard himself say. I'll arrange for your mother's treatment. Complete treatment. Transfer to the best hospital, best doctors, medications, transplant when a donor is found, follow-up care, everything. No expense spared. James's face lit up with a hope so pure it hurt to look at. But understand this, James, Mitchell continued, his voice hardening. If you're running a con, if this is some elaborate scheme to extract money from me, I will destroy you. I will make your life and everyone you know miserable. I didn't build this empire by being merciful to people who try to manipulate me. I'm not trying to manipulate you, Mr. Harrington, James said softly. I'm just trying to save my mama, and maybe save you too. Mitchell picked up his phone and dialed Gloria. Get me Dr. Sharon Yamamoto at Presbyterian Hospital. Tell her it's urgent. As he waited for the call to connect, Mitchell looked at James, who was standing perfectly still, hands clasped together like he was praying. Maybe he was. God knew someone needed to pray for what Mitchell was about to do, because he was either about to save 2 lives or prove himself to be the biggest fool who ever lived. The story continues. Will Mitchell's gamble pay off? Will James's mother survive? And can the healing touch of a child really save a billionaire from himself? Stay tuned for part 2, where the impossible promise begins to unfold in ways no one could predict. Remember to like this video if you're invested in Mitchell and James's journey, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Vicky Tale for the conclusion of this incredible story. Drop a comment telling us, would you take a leap of faith like Mitchell did? Part 2, coming next.